21 million Americans have cast early ballots for next week's midterm elections.
We're going to see not just a red wave, but a red tsunami.
Senator Warnock and all the left is campaigning right now. They're lying to you.
The people of Georgia deserve to know who he is, what he said, and what he's done.
Just to be abundantly clear, poll watching is different than voter intimidation, which is unlawful.
Nobody should be intimidated when they're exercising their most precious right to vote.
He's not really cognizant of the real challenges of business owners.
In January, I'm going to still be much better. But he will still be a fraud, though.
It's heating up in both Pennsylvania and Georgia, where we will take you in mere minutes. Welcome to Red and Blue. I'm Caitlin Huey-Burns, coming to you from our Washington bureau. Thank you for joining us. It's campaign season. We are just 8 days away from Election Day, and our CBS News Battleground Tracker shows that Republicans are still in the lead to take the House. Republicans are estimated to take 228 seats in the House. That's 4 more seats than our estimate showed just 2 weeks ago. I am joined now by our all-star panel, 3 of my CBS News colleagues. We have Executive Director of Elections and Surveys, Anthony Salvanto, who is joining us from New York City. We have Congressional Correspondent Nicole Killian, who is with us from Georgia, and Chief Election and Campaign Correspondent Robert Costa, who joins us from Pennsylvania. I want to start with you, Anthony, for the latest on polling in the midterms. I know, all of the campaigns have essentially made their closing pitches. We know what their arguments are, but the biggest question looming is turnout, how turnout could impact control of the House specifically. What have you been seeing?
How you doing, Caitlin? So we can put that in our model and show folks how that could affect this race. Let me start with this. That's the number you read off the top, which is our current estimate right now, the Republicans leading in 228 seats, obviously enough for majority, right? Now, if we take the data we've collected, talking to voters in all of these districts, putting it in our model, and we say, what happens if the Democrats get really strong turnout, approaching what they saw in 2018 from, in particular, younger voters? Well, I can put that in, and you see the Democrats basically make this an even race. It gets them to 218 within a seat or two. Maybe they could hold on to the House. Now, we haven't seen that yet because younger voters haven't told us they're as likely to turn out as older voters. But that's the sort of lower bound of the Republican range right now. Having said that, Caitlin, let me see what happens if we put into the model where the Republican turnout advantage keeps growing, where they show up in greater numbers, especially in Republican areas. That would get them to 238 seats, so a larger gain than our baseline estimate and about an average gain for a party out of power. That's the range of possibilities. Slight edge, slight chance of Democrats holding the House, maybe a bigger edge, maybe a bigger gain for the Republicans that people want to be focused on when we say it all comes down to turnout.
Yeah, it really does. And if you are a voter watching this and wondering if your vote counts, I think those models show that, yes, in fact, your vote could make the difference in some of these key races. Anthony, when I am out in battleground states reporting, the first thing I do is turn on the television in my hotel room to kind of see what voters are seeing in terms of ads. And every voter I talk to says they've been inundated with ads. And I'm wondering whether these ads are making a difference. Is there any way that you guys have been tracking this?
I'm glad you asked, Caitlin, because if we take a look at what do people think will happen if either party wins, right? Now, they're running negative ads against the other side, things, usually a doom and gloom, something kind of message from the opponents. But then campaigns are saying, no, this is what we promise you. So take a look at what people think will happen if the Democrats win. Will they try to pass a national right to an abortion law, 84%? Okay, that's the Democratic messaging. That's getting out there. At least that's good for their voters, which is what they want. But look at some of the effects of potentially the negative ads Republicans are running against Democrats. 53% of likely voters think the Democrats would cut police funding. That's been the subject of negative ads. 59% think Democrats would try to open the U.S.-Mexico border. That's been the subject of ads. Now, again, that's not necessarily what's going to happen, but it's what people think is going to happen. So maybe those ads are having an effect. And let me show you this on the Republican side. Good thing for them, since people are concerned about gas prices. They'd say people think they'd increase U.S. energy production, 71%. But, you know, Democrats have raised these concerns about democracy. What happens next if the Republicans take the Congress? Well, 56% think they'd try to pass a national abortion ban. 56% think they'd try to overturn Democratic wins in elections. So those Democratic messages saying the Republicans might do these things, and Democratic voters anyway don't want that, some of those may be having an effect too, Caitlin. Definitely some perceptions out there on either side.
Yeah, Anthony, thanks for that. I mean, as much as voters bemoan all of those political ads, they are absorbing them in some capacity, which is why they keep getting made. Anthony, thanks so much. Good to see you, and we'll check back with you later this week. I appreciate it. Let's go to Georgia now, where we have Nicole Killian, who is joining us from Powder Springs, Georgia. Nicole, you've been all over this state, and I'm always in awe of how you are able to give us the latest reporting from your travels. And I know you've been going on very little sleep, so thanks for being here. I want to ask about Obama, because he was in the state this weekend campaigning for Raphael Warnock and Stacey Abrams. I'm curious if you, have been seeing what kind of impact someone like Obama coming to the state can have on voters.
Well, I think we'll have to see. I mean, keep in mind, early voting here has been underway for the past 2 weeks, and a lot of voters we've been talking to say that they have already cast their ballots. But, you know, at that event on Friday night, some voters did tell me that they hope that it does energize the base a little bit more, especially given the narrative that is out there that perhaps, Democrats need to do more in terms of momentum and galvanizing support, given issues like the economy and inflation, and also given even support among African-American voters. You know, I had a chance over the weekend to sit down with Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock, where I did ask him a little bit more about the African-American electorate here, which makes up about a third of the electorate overall. So it is a critical voting bloc. Here's what he had to say. Win without them.
We need black voters. We need white voters in poor rural parts of Georgia. And in our cities, and it's really the coalition that elected me. It's a multiracial coalition, and I'm proud that we were able to create that and to inspire people.
And so I would note that at that Obama rally in support of the senator and Stacey Abrams, the crowd was predominantly African-American. So certainly there was an effort to try to target black voters with that visit. I will say, just talking to other African-American voters throughout the region, for instance, we went to a Souls to the Polls event over the weekend. We also were at a black church and have visited an HBCU down here, Georgia State, and consistently, the message that we hear from people is they really do want to get people out. They really want to encourage people to turn out. And there is concern, particularly among young voters, that they may not come out this time around. So that is why they are being very aggressive, at least here in Georgia and other parts of the country, to try to galvanize support.
Yeah, and Nicole, they're going to need those voters not only for the election day, but even if Georgia goes into a runoff, because Georgia has that rule where if no candidate gets 50% of the vote, they have to go to a December runoff. I know you talked to Warnock about this. What did he have to say? Is he anticipating going that distance?
Well, he's hoping, in his words, to win outright. And he has put out some ads even suggesting that he doesn't want to interrupt people's Thanksgiving with a runoff race. But we did talk about the prospects. So here's what he had to say on that front. Are you prepared for this race to go to a runoff?
Oh, I think the people of Georgia are showing up. And the most powerful words in a democracy are the people have spoken. We'll see what they say come November 8th, but I'm in it. I'm as committed as ever. I'm as hopeful as ever. And I believe that the people of Georgia are going to give me an opportunity to continue to serve and work for them for the next 6 years. It certainly would be the honor of my life.
You know, and it's not just the senator, even Herschel Walker as well. In terms of his campaign, he's really been trying to push people to get out there and to vote early. And he is also, too, hoping that there won't necessarily be a runoff. You know, both candidates obviously would like to win this contest, you know, November 8th if they can. But the reality is, in terms of the polling, and neither one of them has really been able to sustain a level above 50%. And obviously, everybody says the real poll is Election Day, but that is notable because it does give the indication that potentially this could go to a runoff next month or in December.
Yeah, smart politicians not to want to ruin voters' holiday plans, but we may be in that position. Nicole Killian, thank you so much, and I know we'll be talking to you a lot down in Georgia as this campaign wraps up. I want to go now up to Pennsylvania, where our Robert Costa has been covering those key races there. You've got a big Senate race, a big governor's race. All eyes are on Pennsylvania these days. Bob, CBS News was all over the state this week talking to voters. I want to play a little bit about what we've been hearing from them and get your thoughts on the other side.
So I vote pretty much strictly Democrat, so I'll be voting for John Fetterman. We live in Pittsburgh. We know he did a lot of good for Braddock, and he's a really good representative of what I think Pennsylvania should stand for, what I think the people should stand for. So we'll be voting for him.
I lean toward the Democratic Party, and then I started to pay more attention, and I just started to not approve of the way the Democrats were running their party. So now ever since then, I've leaned towards the Republican sense.
All right, Bob, so you saw some Eagles jerseys and some Steelers jerseys, and no surprise that was at a tailgate. Always a good place to talk to voters. I'm curious what you've been hearing on the ground there in Pennsylvania.
It's hard to get Pennsylvania voters distracted from sports here in this Keystone State. Caitlin, good to be with you from suburban Philadelphia, Newtown, Pennsylvania. Those voters you just saw were from the Eagles-Steelers tailgate over the weekend. The Eagles now 7-0 in the NFL. The Philadelphia Phillies, the local baseball team here, very popular in the World Series tonight. So a lot of attention on sports, but a lot of attention on politics as well. And this Senate race has the nation's attention. It has Pennsylvanians' attention. Mehmet Oz and Democrat John Fetterman locked in a tight race, according to almost every poll. And in the final days, you see the lieutenant governor, the Democratic candidate, John Fetterman, trying to rally Democrats. This is probably going to come down to turnout for Democrats. Can they get that Democratic base to come out in a midterm year when you don't have the presidential wins at your back, the usual turnout, the large turnout from a presidential cycle? And so in recent weeks, you've seen a lot of people knocking on doors around Pennsylvania on the Democratic side, trying to revive and rouse that Democratic voter. CBS News spoke to two canvassers on the Democratic side in recent days. Let's take a listen.
There's just a lot of really important issues at hand, with inflation, the minimum wage, health care, Social Security, Medicare. All those things are kind of at risk right now. And so democracy is at risk, our voting rights. It's just really important to get out the vote. And Pennsylvania is a key state.
And in order to get Democrats out to the polls, you see the Lieutenant Governor, John Fetterman, talking about what those canvassers were talking about, the issue of democracy. Today, Fetterman has been calling out Mehmet Oz's campaign for having some people who are associated and allied with the campaign who are participating in the Trump rally on January 6, 2021. Tomorrow, Fetterman will be meeting with a local black leader in Erie County, Pennsylvania. And you see on the Republican side a little bit of quiet, and that they feel good after Mehmet Oz's debate. My Pennsylvania sources feel Mehmet Oz right now just needs to make sure he gets at that suburban voter, and that's why tomorrow CBS News will be here in Bucks County, north of Philadelphia, for Mehmet Oz's first event of the week, where he's going to try in Bensalem, PA, to say to those suburban Republicans he's one of them, though he's always being linked, of course, to former President Donald Trump, who lifted him in the primary race. Democrats want to remind voters about that association.
Yeah, and Bob, former President Trump is actually going to be in Pennsylvania this weekend campaigning along with President Biden and former President Obama, which shows you just how key these Pennsylvania races are with everybody descending on the state. I'm curious what you think the impact of Trump coming to Pennsylvania in the final stretch will have on Oz's candidacy.
For Oz, It's about making sure that Trump coalition comes out while also reaching out to suburban voters in Philadelphia and elsewhere. Former President Trump will be coming to Latrobe, Pennsylvania over the weekend. That's in western Pennsylvania. We're on the eastern side of the state. Western Pennsylvania was Trump country in 2016. It has a deep pocket of voters who are frustrated about the global economy, who talk about immigration when I've been out there in western Pennsylvania dozens of times. And that Trump voter, for Oz to win, needs to be there at the polls. And Oz has benefited in some ways by having Doug Mastriano, the Pennsylvania state senator, who's the gubernatorial nominee, being a favorite of many Trump supporters nationwide. Mastriano tried to overturn the 2020 election, support the efforts to block the certification of President Biden's election. And so Mastriano, in the eyes of many Trump supporters across the country, is one of them. He's a fellow traveler in the Trump movement. Oz is someone who has Trump's support, but is more well known from his days on television. So you see Oz right now trying to bounce off that debate last week and put together the Trump coalition with what I would call the Pat Toomey coalition, the outgoing, retiring Republican senator who has that suburban support and conservative support.
Yeah, really interesting. I know you talked to Senator Toomey last week about that. Bob, in Pennsylvania, the Keystone State, of course, key to how the Senate map shapes out. We're excited to have you. Thanks so much, Bob. Appreciate your reporting.
Go Phillies.
Yeah, go Phillies indeed. Violent threats against political leaders have been on the rise. We'll discuss what it means for our politics with my colleague John Dickerson next. You're streaming Red and Blue, reporting across the political divide.
Original CBS Reports documentary.
Yoga and wellness has become a place of anti-science.
Online clickbait.
The algorithms feed you content based upon your own fantasy.
Potentially at my peril.
There's no question about it.
Spreading digital disinformation.
Their entire yoga studio and spiritual community got so embedded in all of the QAnon stuff that it became this sick place.
Why pro-health people are fertile ground for anti-science messages.
We can just go into the whole mask thing. A lot of us just believe that's symbolism for silencing people.
People are locked in this mindset. They've been taught to accept what the medical doctors say.
No longer are you going to be willing to take any medical advice.
It's a big problem that we urgently need to address.
An original CBS Reports documentary streaming now. An original CBS Reports documentary.
We need to put an end to this territorial status.
Will statehood create a better Puerto Rico?
So that we have the same quality of life that you see in the States.
What do you worry about?
Me living here in the future.
They're giving incentives to non-Puerto Ricans to come to Puerto Rico
and extract our natural resources and take over our land.
Vacation in Puerto Rico, and in exchange for that, you don't pay taxes.
Why would I allow somebody who abused me for 123 years to then consume me?
An original CBS Reports documentary streaming now.
When weather turns extreme,
massive and rapidly intensifying hurricane,
every second counts.
Hurricane Fiona slams Puerto Rico with flooding and power outages.
CBS News and the Weather Channel bring you virtual weather technology so advanced, so real.
Well over 9 feet. This is not survivable.
You'll have time to get prepared.
You want to have the advantage on severe weather days.
It just may save your life.
Feel the forecast. Weather when it matters most on CBS Mornings.
People from every corner of America facing challenges.
Everyone is just looking for some type of connection.
Just raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to help.
Coming together to find solutions.
We are going to do something about it.
Their stories are our stories.
Welcome to Eye on America.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
We are so excited we just can't hide it.
CBS Mornings are, well, everything your morning should be.
Let's do it!
Let's go!
CBS Mornings, starting at 7.
Stories that inform, inspire, and brighten your day.
I've been waiting patiently for something like this.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream on the free CBS News app Tuesday mornings.
Welcome back to Red and Blue. I'm Caitlin Huey-Burns. The Justice Department has charged the man accused of attacking House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul Pelosi, with assault and attempted kidnapping. Police say 42-year-old David Wayne DePape told authorities that he broke into the speaker's home with a plan to hold her hostage to talk to her. He said that if she lied to him, he was going to break her kneecaps. The filing says DePape believed Pelosi was, quote, the leader of the pack of lies told by the Democratic Party. CBS News chief political analyst and senior national correspondent John Dickerson is with me now. He is also the host, of course, of CBS News Streaming Primetime with John Dickerson. John, good to see you. Thanks for being here. So these new revelations in this report are really startling, even if we are not surprised at how the temperature in terms of political violence has risen.
They are startling because they are just so peculiar and odd. This is obviously a deeply troubled person, and we have to be very careful in talking about the political violence and rhetoric that is a part of our politics and that we see with threats coming out from the bulletins coming out from the Department of Homeland Security about increased threats and the kind of political violence that's the potential that we've been talking about for weeks before this event. And then this event, which is a very odd person engaged in very odd behavior, and which seems to get odder by the minute. Which may or may not have anything to do with politics as it's been, as we've seen it in these very tumultuous last few years.
Yeah, John, I want to kind of take a step back and discuss this increase in violent threats against politicians. I think we have a graph to show our viewers just how much this has increased since 2017. And of course, if we had hours to talk, I would ask you kind of how we got here. But I'm wondering if you could kind of put this in the context of what political consequences exist for the type of rhetoric that we've been seeing in our political discourse. I mean, to get to this point, I'm wondering what can change from here, or will it change?
Well, it won't change until the structures of politics change. And right now, in the structures of politics, you get your base fired up. And the two parties are not the same in this. On the Republican side, because Donald Trump sets the tone of the party, he is the leader of the party. He talked favorably about violence at rallies going all the way back to 2015. So the tempo in that party is different. There is a continuum, though. There is clearly the rhetoric and discussions in politics are hotter, and that creates an environment that is just supercharged. And so you can have someone like this character, DePape, kind of attaches to that environment. That's at the very extreme end and the behavior of a clearly troubled mind. But what we also see is a number of people, look at January 6th, for example, who are otherwise participating normally in society, but who receive a message from the leader of the Republican Party that the election was stolen, which is a lie, and they nevertheless riot at the Capitol. They change their lives to arrange their lives in support of this lie. That's a very different kind of behavior, and that is at the center of the Republican Party at the moment. And it often has a violent cast to it, because at the center of the notion of a stolen election is you can't trust the system. And if you can't trust the system, and you've been told that the other side is not just wrong but evil, then you take matters into your own hands, and that can often mean threats and intimidation, and in the worst cases, violence.
Yeah, and that intimidation we're also looking for at the polls. There's been some disturbing reports about poll watchers, and so we'll be watching that heading into the midterms. John Dickerson, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, Caitlin.
And up next, Major Garrett sits down for an exclusive interview with California Governor Gavin Newsom about the Paul Pelosi attack. You're streaming Red and Blue.
thinking about it.
Everybody wakes up in the morning and they are pelted with alerts that frighten them, news that agitates them. With this show, we have the time to explain what's going on. These migrants, they've been released. Explain the status that allows them to be released, to slow things down a little bit. What are the big sets of questions for China and its ambitions? Hackers are stepping up their attacks to extort victims. Let's start with easy. Who's attacking? Here's a deeper understanding of what's happening.
I'm thinking about it.
Prime Time with John Dickerson. Stream on the free CBS News app. An original documentary from CBS reports tensions rising between a powerful country and a vital island.
The supply of this technology came grinding to a halt. The world would grind to a halt.
Absolutely. As Taiwan faces threats and aggression,
Taiwan is on the front line, and we understand our responsibility as a democracy. We cannot fall.
CBS News examines whether they can defend themselves.
Putin, Ukraine, China, Taiwan, they are manifestations of the battle between autocracy and democracy. And that is a fight that we're all engaged in.
Defending Taiwan, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
When weather turns extreme,
Massive and rapidly intensifying hurricane.
every second counts.
Hurricane Fiona slams Puerto Rico with flooding and power outages.
CBS News and the Weather Channel bring you virtual weather technology so advanced, so real.
Well over 9 feet. This is not survivable.
You'll have time to get prepared.
You want to have the advantage on severe weather days.
It just may save your life.
Feel the forecast. Weather when it matters most on CBS Mornings.
People from every corner of America facing challenges.
Everyone is just looking for some type of connection.
Just raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to help.
Coming together to find solutions.
We are going to do something about it.
Their stories are our stories.
Welcome to Eye on America.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
When it comes to the money you spend every day, we have you covered every morning. Making money makes sense. Weekdays on CBS Mornings.
After decades in the public eye and public service, this mother-daughter duo is now talking about gutsy women. What's the gutsiest thing you've ever done? We go person to person with Secretary Hillary Rodham Clinton and Chelsea Clinton.
Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Stories that inform, inspire, and brighten your day.
I've been waiting patiently for something like this.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream on the free CBS News app Tuesday mornings.
Welcome back to Red and Blue. I'm Caitlin Huey-Burns. CBS News Chief Washington correspondent Major Garrett sat down for an exclusive interview with California's Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom in Santa Fe, New Mexico on Saturday, where he was campaigning. He spoke about threats to elected officials following the attack on House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul.
I've seen the dehumanization of Nancy Pelosi. I don't think anyone's been dehumanized like she has consistently. I mean, I watched this one guy, was it Jesse Waters or something on Fox News, what he's been saying about Paul Pelosi the last 5-6 months, mocking him consistently. Don't tell me that's not aiding and abetting all this. Of course it is. They're sowing the seeds of creating a culture and a climate like this. I mean, it's look online. Look at the sewage that is online that they amplify on these networks and in social media to dehumanize people like Nancy Pelosi and other political leaders.
When Debbie Dingell, a distinguished member of Congress, Democrat from Michigan, tells Axios, someone will be killed who is a lawmaker, is she wrong?
I don't want to feed that by even suggesting that's possible, but what evidence suggests it's not. I mean, I wasn't a baby in the 60s. I mean, I wasn't, look, I know what over the last 3 years has come in my inbox. Trust me, you don't, because I'm not sharing it. I don't even share it with my wife. I got 4 kids. So I know a little bit about this. I mean, it wasn't just a recall against me. It was surround sound in every way, shape, or form. So
of this venom.
At a level, I've had, look, there's always folks in the extreme, and you roll your eyes. It's just, there's
it comes with the arena, but this is different.
This is something's different here. There's, The mind is being stretched. People feel free to shove again. I mean, there's some certain universal values, and we just, once this election over, I just hope and pray that we can start to reconcile those differences, because this can't continue. It just can't.
And we will air more of Major Garrett's interview with California Governor Newsom tomorrow on Red and Blue, right here on CBS News. And that does it.
An original CBS Reports documentary.
When folks on the right talk about socialism, it's a boogeyman.
Socialists are always going to promise you free tuition, free healthcare, free everything, but they will never promise you freedom.
I think of socialism as government control.
Wealth is too concentrated at the top right now.
Providing for people the things that they need is actually the world that we were supposed to live in.
Socialism